it's only that small. The committee was impressed and commends the City Ridge Restaurant. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Breeden.
Here.
Ms. Stevens.
Here.
Mr. Blades.
Here.
Mr. Heyman.
Here.
Mr. Maurer.
Here.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Is there a public comment on closed session? please come forward and speak your piece.
Ms. Breeden, can we approve the agenda first?
Oh, sorry. Before you still come up, I skipped approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote. 5
Okay.
ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Now please speak. My apology.
Evening Council, Scott Miller, 341 East Wilson. I am not 100% sure what's happening in closed session until I saw former council person's videos on Facebook, but just here to say we have an active and relevant MSA, and I'd like you to bear that in mind as our council that was it 3 years ago now, said that we'd approve the MSA and move forward with that. And that's all I'd like to say is we have an open and active MSA, and I'd like us to make sure whatever's happening in closed session tonight that we remember that council did approve that 3 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could I hand this to you, please? Hi, I'm Lynn Whitcombs, live on Mesquite Avenue in Ridgecrest, pastor of Cornerstone Bible Church, and I represent a group of ministers from 16 congregations in town. So you're getting a copy of the letter that we all signed, and I just wanted to make sure that it was fresh in your mind. And regarding the casino, we continue to encourage the City Council to oppose it, to be steadfast against it, mainly because of two reasons that are listed there. Casino gambling undermines good morals, and that's all spelled out. And also, casino gambling produces harmful moral, economic, and social consequences. And I'd like to read from that paragraph. Casinos promote problem gambling, which hurts senior citizens and families. And that all these statements that I'm going to make are all sourced. They're straight out of these studies and articles. Communities with casinos typically experience an increase in crime, including prostitution, substance abuse, driving while under the influence of alcohol, auto thefts, home robberies, mail theft, loan sharking, and street crime. And this expected increase in crime is why the tribe has promised to buy the Ridgecrest Police Department a new police car, and Kern County is expected to reopen the county jail in Ridgecrest. And in terms of economics, casinos typically extract wealth from communities, weaken nearby businesses, and hurt property values in host communities. And collectively, our pastoral experience confirms that the proposed casino would be bad news for the community. We know some of the faces and families who are behind the gambling statistics. We know from firsthand experience the pain of the financial, marital, familial, legal, and spiritual harm that gambling causes. And we're persuaded that the proposed casino would be bad news for the Indian Wells Valley. And previously, I've also shared with you from my own personal experience about my dad, who's now living with me, ironically, right around the corner from where the proposed casino is going to go. He's 93 years old. But he was basically entrapped. Pechanga Casino. There were prostitutes involved that the casino knew about. We have video, we have pictures. Our family went to court, got a restraining order against one particular prostitute. We tried to serve it to the head of security at Pechanga, and he refused to accept it, stating that Pechanga is a sovereign nation, not under the laws of Riverside County or Temecula. So, frankly, that is what stirred me up to become involved here. But I'd also like to close by saying that whatever you decide on this issue, we appreciate your service to the citizens of Ridgecrest, and we will continue to pray for you. And we will also continue serving our community by presenting the good news of Jesus Christ that sets us free from the harmful consequences of sin. And then this has been signed by ministers from New Beginnings Baptist Church, First Landmark Missionary Baptist Church, Ridgecrest Calvary Assembly, Ridgecrest United Methodist Church, Ridgecrest Apostolic Church, Our Savior's Lutheran Church, Emmanuel Baptist Church, Bethel Baptist Church, Ridgecrest Presbyterian Church, Pilgrim Lutheran Church, First Baptist Church, China Lake Baptist Church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, Desert Christian Center, Christ the King Anglican Church, and Cornerstone Bible Church. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Lynn.
Hi, Dave Matthews. My address is on file. Here we go again. Back in 2016, some of you may remember that I ran for the city council seat, one of the city council seats that was open. I was trying to run a low-key, low-cost campaign, and I don't know if that was part of the reason I didn't make it or not, but I didn't make it, but I was satisfied with the results that we did get out of that election. But it seems like other people who can't seem to take no for an answer didn't like it. And they went about means of getting rid of one of the people. I'm not going to go into all of that. But the good pastor was up here just a minute ago, touched on a couple of other things. There's not a level playing field. I cannot go down there and open a casino myself, nor can any of you. So, are we going to have a level playing field or not? According to the government and the Department of Indian Affairs, no. You can't have a level playing field. The other thing is that casinos come up as a sovereign nation. Pastor just described one instance where they stuck to that. So what happens? What's a sovereign nation? Well, if you've been paying attention to the world news, I think you just saw something over in the Middle East there, where there was going to be an attack on one of our United States embassies. That is a sovereign nation. And there's no way that we should have any entity whatsoever at the front gate of the Naval Weapons Center that has sovereign nation status. So, pay attention, folks, what's going on here. Now, one other thing, when I was running for city council, I was obviously against the casino, which I still am. That's 4 years ago. I'm getting tired, and so have a lot of other people. And it's not just a city issue, because when I ran, and I walked through the grocery store or anywhere else out in the public, I had people come up to me and say, I agree with you, but I can't vote for you because I'm in the city. I'm in the county. So you see, there's people out there who are against this who have no say. If anything, you should have taken a valley-wide election somehow. So vote against it and put it to sleep.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Birdwell, 224 Oasis. One thing I would like to remind everybody here is that we build places of worship for a reason. That's where they belong. This is a house of state. We should keep those two separate. Rights, don't try and interfere with my rights. If I want to choose to gamble, I'll choose to gamble. If I want to choose to drink, I'll choose to drink. If I choose to smoke, I'll choose to smoke. I don't sit here and tell anyone else what they can and cannot do. I don't go into a church telling them what they can and cannot believe. I have no right. They shouldn't be doing that here. The tribe and the city came to an agreement. The MSA was signed. The property was set up. Go for it. Just approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ronald Porter, Madam Mayor, council members. The biggest reason I got up today is because the improper notification on this closed agenda. When it says talk about property negotiator, it doesn't identify the property to where someone, a reasonable person can read it. And it doesn't have to be long. Even the California law says it has to be 20 words or less, or can be. But it needs to say what property is. You shouldn't have to go to the county and seek a map to say, well, oh yeah, here it is. It doesn't even have a street address. It needs to be properly noticed. It's not difficult. It's a violation of the Brown Act. They continue to do it, and I'm standing up to say it has to stop. Even the third on this is pending litigation. The pending litigation, again, is improperly noticed. It has to say, this litigation is about property. This is litigation about a property sale here. All it has to do is a very short thing. It has to put the person, the citizens, on notice that they want to look further. There's no notice at all on here. It needs to be addressed. I was sitting there looking at this property. So what is property for? What are they doing with it? The other thing I want to say about the one on the property sales, after the negotiation, that property sales has to be put on the agenda and come back to the general city council so the people can have say on it before it's voted upon. It can't be voted on in closed session. It has to be brought back out. And as far as the other gentleman here, I have to say something. Separation of church and state, it doesn't exist as he wants it to believe. This country was founded on basic Judeo-Christian principles. It was meant to function that way. You can study all the history you want, and I guarantee you're going to come up with the same conclusion. Yes, sir, that is absolutely correct. I saw those funny faces of yours. It's absolutely correct. In fact, there's no jurisdiction for the Supreme Court to even address it. It says in the First Amendment, says, they shall not identify a religion. That's all it meant. Study your history. It's all there. I'm tired of people misstating it. I've studied the history, and I guarantee I can support every ounce of it. But I want this agenda to start properly noticing what's going on. There's no big deal if this particular one, I realize it's over the tribe because it says tribe, but what was their argument? You didn't properly follow the other one? From what I've read, correct or incorrect, for the tribe to bring this suit should have been thrown out because they didn't have standing to bring it. My understanding, it was the other part of the partnership that wasn't being taken care of. It was for them to bring it. It wasn't for the tribe. The tribe had nothing there. They already let their agreement expire, and it should have been thrown out right there. A person with standing can bring it, but someone without standing can't. And this was brought with no standing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Doris Hobson, and I live in the county, and there are a lot of people in the county that are for the casino, not no. And why in the world the city council telling me what I can do, where I can spend my money, and where I can have some fun? I hope and pray to God that you vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Council. Mike Neal. So it's really, I guess, to me, disappointing that we even have to be addressing this particular closed session item tonight. December 2018, the prospective land sale to the casino developer was terminated. Escrow was terminated right here in these council chambers. That should have been the end of it, and yet here we are again. Somebody's bringing up the land sale. Well, let me remind you of a few facts. After the initial MSA agreement and land sale agreement, there was a change in the city council. That change was 2 council members. They were voted in because of the people in this town who did not want a casino. That was the only 2 council member positions in that election, up for election, and both of them were put in place because we didn't want the casino. We said it, we asked for a referendum to vote on it, and we were totally refused to be listened to on that. So we voted people in. Following election, we put in Mr. Heyman by a huge margin over any of the other council candidates, solely because, for the main fact that he said, I am against the casino. So here we are. Please remember those facts. Please pay attention to those facts. Who wanted them and who wanted it and who didn't want it. This was a big part of the whole debate, and I think it was pretty well demonstrated in those 2 elections. Now, and I have to conjecture here because I don't know what's being said, what's being pushed as reasons for this in closed session, but I pretty well think I'm probably close to the fact on this is that, we're being told that, well, we have an arbitration suit and another possible lawsuit over the land sale, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. Well, let me tell you for sure that I have seen this city spend a lot of money on things that they wanted to make happen in this city in the past. They spent, between actual cost and personnel cost, $700,000 of city council money to boot an elderly gentleman and his wife off of their property because, well, that was a big problem. People didn't like their junk and their noise. We could have bought that man out for probably less than a third of that. But there were other agendas behind that. Nonetheless, they spent all that money to accomplish that. I could go on for 20 minutes telling you cases where this city has spent a lot of money that they shouldn't have spent on things. So we're going to have to, it's going to cost us a lot of money paying lawyers, fighting arbitration cases, maybe fighting a lawsuit that has not been filed yet. That's a non-issue. Should be a non-issue. It's really not applicable at all, period. If the city wants it to happen, they'll spend the money. And the people who put the remaining 2 of you in your offices don't mind you spending the money to put an end to this thing. That's all I have to say about that. The last one is, and I don't know how much attention the 2 of you on the council were paying in the early days, but in the early days of the debate over this, there were at least 3 people who came up to this podium and they humbled themselves before the whole city, admitted to their gambling problem, their gambling addiction problem. One gentleman came up here with his young son by his side, humbling himself to that degree, begging, please don't bring this, put that in front of my eyes every single day. I have to go up China Lake Boulevard to work. If those people are not worth your consideration, and the promise of supposed promises, which I could go on for an hour about all the claimed promises that have been made about this casino and how great it'll be for Ridgecrest, are a few bucks are more important than those people's lives. God help us.
Okay, thank you.
Marilyn Neal. Excuse me. We've already heard very clearly, and anyone that has been awake at all during these last 3 years knows full well that regardless of whether it's one life or if it's many lives, it's already a known conclusion that there will be harm, there will be hurt to people's lives, our neighbors, our friends, our families. we've already said, we've already spent 3 years of our lives pleading. We've already spent 3 years of our lives researching, digging, studying, sharing the things that Pastor Whitcomb mentioned. And they weren't, only a portion of them had anything to do with religious, the religious aspect of it. Those reports, some of those reports that he quoted, reports that we gave to you over and over, many of them were totally secular. Many of them were just totally economic. But the information was put there for you. I will remind you, you've heard many times from this podium here about our founders. You all know, I'm sure you've all studied history enough to know, our founders gave their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. Their honor and their word was sacred. They lost it. Because why? Because they wanted to dominate and tell everybody else what to do? No. Because they wanted to love their neighbor, protect their neighbor, for generations, their families, their children. Many of them had vast fortunes, far more than what most of any of us have here in this town to lose. But they were willing to lose it. So yes, I agree with my husband and others. We're not really concerned about the cost of some lawsuit. Are you willing, each of you, are you willing to sacrifice, to protect Ridgecrest, to protect your families, your neighbors? One thing they didn't give up is they did not give up their integrity, and they did not give up their courage to stand against lies, bullying. They stood up not just against a developer or a tribe or this or that or some piddly law. They stood up against the Crown of England. Are you willing to stand up and say, no, enough's enough? This is a done deal. So what if we have a lawsuit? Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Morgan, 729 North Union Street, and I wrote down my remarks because I didn't want to ramble. Reference to the conference with real property negotiation item. I am very pleased to finally see this showing progress rather than what has occurred previously. This is a property rights issue, a private seller, a willing buyer, and the unfortunate mess created by the state of California in eliminating redevelopment agencies, thereby having the State Department of Finance becoming involved. Remember, the actions by the state followed that all RDA properties are to be sold as soon as possible. That was 3 years ago. So the city does not hold title to the property and never has. In the agreement of the past, approximately in the year 2002, between the city and property owners, at no time did the transfer of title ever occur. The agreement was to last only 10 years, and that is long past. The property owners have always had the ability to find their own buyer, which they have done. The city is denying the private property owners the right to sell. That is, hopefully up until now. This issue of non-support to agreements made by the city is very troubling, and all private businesses or business entities may no longer have the confidence to engage in negotiation, as this is the first time ever that the city has outwardly reneged on a previous agreement. Also, this is the first time ever that a city council has stood in the path of a private property owner selling their land. The situation with the Department of the Interior with missing documents has been resolved via lawsuit, and it is well known now that the properly signed paperwork by which the city used as their excuse to close the escrow was in fact signed well before the drop-dead date, but somehow lost, not forwarded. That was the excuse given. The city shall benefit from the sale of the land and benefit from an increased revenue to the general fund, reported at up to $500,000 per year at build-out. I believe that to be true. The city of Ridgecrest has been saying for 2 decades that I'm aware of that the city has a limited general fund. The city passed measures L and V due to lack of funding. This sale increases that very funding. The possibilities of increased tourism that this casino and facilities can provide are unmeasurable, but I see that this facility may be helpful in getting tour buses to actually stop in Ridgecrest overnight rather than just a food stop. A working group, including the tribal leaders, Casino, Matarango Museum, the China Lake Navy Museum, the RACVB, and others, may be able to work together to have tours, visits, etc., while staying overnight in Ridgecrest. This has the possibility of helping to increase TOT, restaurant uses, and more. Finally, yes, the citizens of Ridgecrest show division on this issue, but the voices of those who support this transfer slant sale, Tribal Casino and Entertainment Center, also know that diversification of our economy, which the citizens and City Council have spoken of for years and years, this sale transfer is just that, economic diversification. And economic diversification and private property rights are not just for the projects certain council members or certain members of the public like or don't like. There needs not to be 100% agreement either, but the voices of support demand recognition as well. The games and the stalling need to end. Support and or pass what is under negotiation, price and terms of payment, recognizing the MSA. Finally, I shall be submitting a Freedom of Information Act request for the costs of the entire litigation processes, city attorney and hired attorneys. I believe the citizens of Ridgecrest deserve to know how much you, the City Council, have spent on this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, no more. Are we having others come up? So please, if you want to speak, please come up so we can expedite your time to talk. Thank you.
Hey there, Stacy Jackson, 109 West Smoke Tree. I'm in favor of the casino. I've spoken a couple of times about it. I think that we have a chance to spur economic development with the casino, but also I think that we are missing out on our chance fighting over the casino, whether we should or should not have it, because we have a great opportunity here with the influx of cash and workers that are coming to help repair the base. And I feel that those people are going to come and they might stay. They're going to hire 200 people. And so this is a great opportunity for us to start retaining people to this town. And economic diversification and things to do and forms of entertainment is one way to do that, to keep and retain people. I think the downside of not going forward with the casino is, of course, the litigation that's going to come about. We're going to have to fight 2 lawsuits if we don't go through with this land sale. And I think that puts the city in great peril. We don't know what would happen with the outcome of those lawsuits, and we can't afford that. The only reason we're in this position is because of the chicanery that went on in Washington, D.C. with the letter and that it was not forwarded to the proper people. Had that letter been forwarded, we would not be in this position today. We would have moved forward with the casino because that's what the Department of Interior would have signed off on that letter. I think also, I have 2 kids in college. I have a daughter at UC Santa Barbara and I have a son at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and they are not going to come back to the city. There is nothing for them here once they graduate. There's no jobs that they're interested in. They don't want to work on the base. They have no desire to work in healthcare. So there is nothing for them to come back to. And as a result, guess what? I'm going to leave this town because I want to be with my kids. So you are going to experience, and probably have experienced over the last decade, because of old ways and old thinking and a desire to keep the town small, you have lost smart people, entrepreneurs, people who have great ideas, people who have energy. They've all left, and they're going to continue to leave, and this town is going to continue to stagnate. And what happens? If the base did not receive that influx of money, where would we all be? If they did not repair the base, all of our housing values would go down. God knows where we would be. So, we're just one major catastrophe away from losing the major employer of the city, and therefore all of the taxes, the real estate values, the jobs, and this town will become very much like Trona in a matter of years because there's nothing to support it. So I think that the city council must move forward for economic diversification, to stand by your promises. You signed the MSA, you entered into an agreement with the tribe, and because if it weren't for the Department of Interior, we wouldn't be here. So that's a whole other story. But I think that we need to take advantage of this springboard and the economic development coupled with what's going on the base to have this town grow and be diversified and have a better economic base so that we can afford Parks and Rec, and you don't have to raise the fees for people to have their kids in sports. You can pave the roads. You can do all kinds of stuff with the $500,000 plus that we're going to get from the casino. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody after this? Thank you.
I guess I'll be the anchor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I guess this kind of coincides with what she just said.
Identify yourself,
My name
please,
is
for
Joe
the
Shermer. I've been a resident of Ridgecrest for 34 years. Wasn't born here, but I was raised here. With the benefits of this casino, because I'm pro and against, I have no real say, but the money that we could get from it could support the areas like Ridgecrest Heights neighborhood. I don't know if you guys know about where that neighborhood is. I should hope you guys are, your council members. There are 3 streetlights, and I'm not counting Upjohn, Bowman, Guam, or Downs. I'm talking about the whole internal. There are 3, and 2 of them work. Now, I can look all the way down, because I live on Coronado. I can look all the way down to where my buddy lives, which is on almost right to Downs, and it's just pitch black. The only light that we see is the people from their houses, their outside houses. Well, the thing is, when I was growing up, my mom said, hey, those street lights come on, your butt better be home, or you better be on the way home within 15 minutes. That's just how I grew up. I lived in the Los Flores neighborhood when I grew up. Plenty of street lights, plenty of safety. Street lights are that safety. They're that buffer, because I drive 15 miles an hour when I get off Mahan onto my street, because I know there's kids there. Who knows? I can't see them. No one can see them. So when I tell my daughter, hey, come home when the street lights turn on, what, she's going to walk a half mile just to see if it's on or not? It is dark. It is almost caveman status there. Thank heavens everybody has switched to these bright lights on their house, because then we can actually see the road. It is dark. It is dreary. There are 2 on Mahan and 1 on Inyo. And those ones, well, they run north to south. All the streets that go east to west are forgotten. That brand new neighborhood that's being built, which is beautiful, great. More houses coming in, more people coming to this town. Across the street, just north of Upjohn, in between Downs and right by Fowler, man, on one street, they've got way more streetlights for just dirt than we have in our entire neighborhood. It's a safety issue. It's just huge, because I myself am just one driver there, and I have lived there for 11 years when I purchased my home, and I've almost hit 1 kid, and that's because he came running out, and I was only going 15 miles an hour. So what happens when the people treat it like a NASCAR, which a lot of people do, and they can't see? Could be your kid. It's a safety issue, needs to be addressed. And I did my research, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but an average street light is between $3,000 to $6,000 plus install. Those are for those HPS bulbs, the ones that cost Ridgecrest money. On base, you look all around, they're all LED, they're solar. They're actually cheaper now. They're incredibly cheap. And yeah, there's going to be a cost in replacing the battery in 10 years, 15 years, or something like that. But the amount of money you would save for providing the safety of the people in the Ridgecrest Heights neighborhood would far surpass replacing a battery every 10 years. Just please put that on your docket and think about it. I appreciate your time. Go Ducks.
Thank you. Okay, we are done with public comment on the closed session. So we will go into closed session and we will be out at 6. Maybe not at 6?
Well, this went a little bit longer than we expected.
Yes, it did.
6:30. Or we could go.
Can we go back
Or we can go back in closed session.
in closed session after the meeting? I would prefer that we abide by what we told everybody we would do, is that we will be back at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Let's knock it out.
Okay. Back to order, and I'd like to lead us in the pledge, please. Repeat with me, hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, please be with us as we continue our meeting, remembering we are a city, a community of people who love and care and appreciate each other. Do we always agree with each other? No, but we are a community and we are people who live and support one another. I ask this in your precious name. Amen. Okay, the city attorney's report. Is it not on?
Testing.
Yes.
Testing. Can you hear me okay? There we go. Whoa. Sorry.
Yeah, now I can. Okay.
Madam Mayor, the City Council met in closed session to discuss the 3 items identified on the agenda. City Council received a report from the City Attorney and Agency Negotiator Ron Strand. There was no reportable action. Madam Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next item is public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. Public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Is there anyone who would like to address the council under public comment?
Yes, hi, Dave Matthews. My address is still on file, and I didn't intend to start this off, but I just thought, I think the council is aware, but the general public may not be, but a former mayor and city councilman, Ron Cheshire, passed away recently. The reason the general public doesn't know is because there were no services. But I just wanted to mention this. Thanks to our efficient city clerk, I found out that his term was from 80 to 84, and 82 to 84 is when he was mayor. So I just thought I'd pass that on to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. My name's John Connect. I missed the earlier comment, so I want to comment about the issue of gambling in the casino in the city
Sir,
of Ridgecrest.
That item has already been discussed, and we had a public comment on that at that time.
I just want to say that I think it's a bad idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You got it in. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else who would like to make a public comment?
Hello, my name is Jeff Scott, and I approach you today to announce, or as a member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and the China Lake Museum Foundation, to announce that we have a speaking event next Wednesday night, 1 week from tonight, January 22nd, from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Matarango Museum. We'll be hosting Jim Payne, who is Chief Test Pilot of the Perlin 2 project, which is a project to fly a glider up as high as 90,000 feet. And on September 2nd of 2018, our speaker, Jim, and his co-pilot, Tim Gardner, set a new world altitude record in their sailplane, flying 76,000 feet over the Andes Mountains of Argentina. This is actually the second visit that Mr. Payne will have made to our town. He and his wife visited here a couple of years ago to talk about the altitude record he'd set at the time of 52,000 feet. But now he's going to come back and tell us about his effort to break that record by almost 25,000 feet. For his accomplishment, Mr. Payne was named the Flight Test Pilot of the Year by the Society of Flight Test Engineers, and the entire Perlin project was named the Flight Test Team of the Year. So this event is free and open to the general public. And again, it's next Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Matarango Museum. Thank you.
Thank you for announcing that. I was going to do it, and I'm glad you did. Much more effective. Thank you.
Sorry for stealing your thunder.
No, it's your thunder. Go ahead.
Evening, Council. Scott Miller, address is on file, and I may have missed it. Are you guys going back into closed session after this meeting?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, then we will go to council announcements. Mike, you want to start at your end? Scott?
None.
Lindsay?
So, tonight is a very sad night for Ridgecrest. Many decisions being made this evening are based on one thing, the love of money, which, as the saying goes, is the root of evil. The decisions being made are ones that will destroy lives and families. The future of Ridgecrest has been marred and taken in the opposite direction of attracting and retaining families for the base. I personally ran on quality of life and families. My voice has been silenced. I'm confident that I have fought the good fight. Today, it's my youngest daughter's 5th birthday. So for the rest of the evening, I'm going to go celebrate my beautiful daughter's 5th birthday with her. Good night.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay. Kyle?
I don't have anything.
Okay. I wanted to read something to you, that there was a grand jury report in the investigation of the city of Ridgecrest regarding the earthquake and our response to it. I'd like to read the comments on. There was a very complimentary report, but I'd like to read the comments. The committee was impressed and commends the City of Ridgecrest, Kern County EOC, Kern County Sheriff's Department, Kern County Fire Department, Bakersfield Police Department, and other police departments within Kern County, and every citizen, this is important, every citizen who responded to render aid to the City of Ridgecrest. And so I thank the grand jury for their diligence, the fact that they came out here and responded. And one of the recommendations was to look at our emergency operations plan to reflect what we learned from 2019, and I know that is underway. So, okay, thank you. And the next item is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or questions is desired by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and be considered separately with public comment before action is taken. Do any members of the council wish to have any of these items pulled? And I will read them. Proposed action to approve draft minutes of the City of Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Financing Authority Housing Authority regular meeting dated December 18th, 2019. Number 2, approve a resolution of the City of Ridgecrest requesting the termination of the local emergency due to the July 4th, 2019 and subsequent earthquake events. Approve a resolution of the City Council scheduling the date of the annual unmet transportation needs and authorizing the city clerk to advertise this hearing. Is there anyone who'd like to have any of these items pulled? Is there any public who would like to have any of these items pulled? Okay, motion?
So moved. Second.
Please vote. We have 4 ayes, 1 absent. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is nomination and appointment of vice mayor. Rika, you have that?
At this time, you can hold discussions and nominate. Any of the 4 of you can nominate who you would like, and we'll take minute motions on each individual nominations.
Okay, is there any council who would like to make any motion or nominations?
Well, based on his experience in previous governing with the city, I'd like to nominate Councilman Mauer as vice mayor.
I'll second that. Is there any other nominations? Seeing none, a motion? And you seconded it, so Rika, please.
Mayor Breeden.
Yes.
Mr. Blades.
Yes.
Mr. Heyman.
Yes.
Mr. Mauer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Mauer is our new vice mayor.
Congratulations, sir. Okay, the next item. Mayor Breeden, with the concurrence of the city's with the concurrence of the council, will appoint members to the remaining council committees, boards, and commissions. You all have that list in front of you, where the vacancies are, and I would like to say I would like to keep my nominations that I had all the same, and anybody else who would like to make any comments and make their appointments or nominations? Anybody?
Nope, it wasn't. I want to keep mine the same.
There were several vacancies under yours. Did you have any?
I don't have
you
any
want to do?
for
Okay.
those two. Those two haven't met in 5 years. So.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Heyman?
Same for myself. Maintain the 2 committees that I'm on.
Okay.
No change.
Ms. Stevens isn't here, so we will bypass her. She did need to do a planning commission nomination, so we'll go to Mr. Blades.
Right. So for planning commission, I'd like to nominate Bill Ferris Jr. I talked to him on the phone. He seemed like he was still very positive about doing it. So.
Okay.
For planning commission, mayor can actually appoint that. So if all of you agree and are in consensus, we can just move forward on that one. To your points.
Madam Mayor, you do have a vacancy on the RACBB. It was previously held by Mr. Martin. Currently, our economic development analyst, Melissa Anchetta, sits on that board. I was contacted the other day by Doug Luke, who requested that the council appoint Melissa to remain on that committee. She's been on that committee since Mr. Martin's vacancy. You have the choice to appoint any staff, council member or staff, according to the RACB bylaws.
I know that we've had Jason Patton attending as an alternate in that, but I would like to have our staff, who isn't part of the economic development, do that. And if she can't go, then to ask Mr. Patton. Can
Correct.
we do that
Yes.
way?
Yes, we can.
Is it
Okay.
is it either or?
She's the rep, and he's the alternate.
Okay, so you don't need a council member to be on.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Luke was looking for a little bit more consistency because that is Melissa's area of work, and she's working with the RACBB and other economic development entities in the city and the county. This just adds a little more continuity. She has a little more time to participate on the boards that they were looking for.
So there's several other committees that were vacated with Mr. Martin's resignation. So discussions among yourselves of if you want to switch anything or just add Kyle where the vacancies were. What's the recommendation by council?
I would, as you know, when the last committee assignments were made, I was not given a single committee assignment or approved for any committee assignments by the vote of the council. And I would like to serve on the org committee. That's one that's very important to me, and I would like to continue to, since I had served on it before, I would like to serve on that committee as the council's representative.
And we only meet when needed.
When needed, right. Is there any other council member who would like to ask for a specific committee? Because what we had originally talked about is the committees that Wallace served on.
Sure.
Kyle, would he?
Yeah, and I would have no problem with that, but I haven't asked Ms. Stevens at all, so I don't know if she has any preferences on where she's at.
She's on virtually every committee,
Yeah,
so.
I noticed that.
So we can, that was part of.
As long as you.
So I have no problem serving on.
Serving on those
Not at all.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me in the least.
Okay.
And do we need to approve Madam Mayor's offer to?
We can do them all at one time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if I'm hearing correctly, for Youth Advisory, Ms. Stevens is already on it, and you want Mr. Blades to serve also. And the next one would be the League of California Cities. That one had Mr. Martin as the primary and Ms. Stevens as a secondary. How would
I
you
would
like?
think, since she didn't indicate that she wanted to be off of it, you two can work
Absolutely.
that out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And whether who is the primary. I would suggest that, in my infinite wisdom and experience, I would suggest we allow Lindsay to remain as the permanent member, and you are her alternate, because you've got a lot to learn and pick up on that.
So
and
it
I know
seems.
she's good at sharing that information.
So it seems that she's brilliant.
Unless she indicates differently.
Okay.
I would like to see that, unless you have an objection.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
So the next one I see would be the Economic Development Committee. Right now, Ms. Stevens sits on that, and Mr. Martin used to.
Well, we would
Kyle?
have Kyle come in on that, which is what we had talked about.
Okay, and then we have the Veterans Advisory Committee. Ms. Breeden, you sit on that, and then we needed an alternate. We didn't fill all three of these last time, but if you're willing.
I would gladly be on that.
Okay. Okay. Next one is back up to Kerncog to Mr. Maurer.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's once a month meeting. Oops, yeah. Once a month meeting. Like tomorrow night, I drive over to Bakersfield for the meeting. Occasionally, no one went 2 months ago because Wallace couldn't make it, and I had an operation the day before. So.
Okay.
And they were dark in December. So anyway,
Sure.
I'll try to let you know in advance if I'm not going to be able to make it. But it's the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
And I do know with that particular committee, if no one can, because in the past, because I didn't serve on many committees, I would go if someone couldn't make it to a committee, so we didn't have to cancel the meeting.
Right.
But with Kerncog, it is the designated people only, and so no one else can be the alternate other than you two. So.
That is correct.
Understood.
Okay.
And then the next one would be the Navy Community Council. Ms. Breeden serves as the primary, and we would need a backup for that one if you would
Gladly.
so like to. And then the last one is the Civilian and Military Affairs. Again, Ms. Breeden serves as primary.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think we had an alternate in the past.
I don't think so either.
Because I know I've attended, but you're more than welcome too. So, yeah.
So all that leaves is for the planning commissioners to, oh, no, excuse me, there's one more, Measure V. Currently, Mr. Martin's appointment was Jeff Morgan. Have you had a chance to
So I
talk
haven't had a
to him?
chance to talk to Jeff Morgan. So could be.
And I would suggest somebody talk to him soon because he indicated he did not wish. I am told this by my representative on
Sure,
Measure
which is
B.
fine. And I've done a fair amount of asking around, and I
Yeah.
just have yet to find the appropriate individual. So I apologize for being tardy.
Okay.
I'll send you Mr. Morgan's information
Thank
so
you.
that you can contact him.
Thank you.
So like I said, the last thing that's left is for the planning commissioners to figure out what they're going to do with Lindsay's needing to make her appointment and with your appointment and see what committees they're going to reorganize. So other than that, the spreadsheet's full. And we just need to make a motion. Yes, sir.
I don't know who appoints them, but we're short one member on the infrastructure committee.
That's planning.
I'm sorry?
That's planning commissioner.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that's Mauer and Stevens right now for the council, so it's planning commission that needs to do that.
I didn't know who, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Wanted to make sure I brought it up.
Okay.
So we just need a motion for those appointments and a second.
Yeah, a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Blades?
Yes.
Mr. Heyman?
Yes.
Mr. Mauer?
Yes.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion and provide guidance to the city's representative to the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Sir?
Yes, so nothing new to report. The next meeting is tomorrow, and it will be a public hearing. So, and discussion of the GSP that is hopefully going to be submitted by the end of the month. And that's the only news I have to add at this point.
I just want to make a comment. I don't know if you read the newspaper, but Phil Salvatore wrote a very interesting letter to the editor about how to solve the water problem. You might want to look at that. And
he sent it to both of us.
Oh, yes,
okay.
I did read that several times. I don't know if it's something that we want to discuss, at this point in time. I mean, is it
because the plan is pretty much set. The only thing that we would have to do, because those allocations he was referring to are the next set.
Yeah, I mean, and I think he brings up some interesting points and discussion with the letter. To what extent, I don't know how feasible some of it would be, when you start breaking it down. So that's the part I didn't know how far we'd want to get into discussion. But basically, getting rid of all swamp coolers and going to AC and having solar, but, funding that or paying for it, via, the water basin residents. And so, and conservation of water, further conservation of water and getting down to 85 gallons, per household. But I think when you look at some of the issues that we're dealing with, is the city and the basin has conserved water pretty aggressively over the last several years. And so, I've heard the number thrown around, not to be held, true to it, but, as much as, 25-30% of water conservation in the valley. So there has been a major conservation. I don't know how much more, conserving we can do, but, and I think that the discussion of going with, slowing down and getting rid of swamp coolers and moving more to solar and AC, that has been a discussion that's been brought up numerous times by...
It's at the Water District
At the
right
Water
now,
District.
yeah.
I've heard it brought up at various meetings. Other people have brought it up. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, we live in an area where I've done it myself. I have 2 swamp coolers. I now have not turned them on in a year. We went to solar and run AC, and it's been very economical, and it saves a lot of water. So I think that is definitely a direction we want to go. It's just, how do we go about it and forcing people to do something versus, allowing them to do it over time, because it's the right thing to do and easing into it. So, but it does bring up some good points, and it's great for people to, bring this to us, so we can look at it and, add to what we're doing. So anyway, that's about it.
Okay.
Do you know if Mr. Salvatore presented those comments to the Water Resources Manager?
He did.
Okay, so they're being taken into consideration tomorrow.
They were sent last week.
Yeah, I believe it was sent last week, and it appeared to me that it was forwarded to the GA, and it was in the newspaper. And
the Water Resources Manager has undertaken the Herculean task of going through all of those, all the comments we received, including one set that was 400 pages long, and is presenting, I think, a spreadsheet or something that has responses back to all of them that are not the legal comments. And then I drafted a response to the legal comments.
Very good.
When he sent us the letter, I know we got one forwarded by our city manager, but also we got a letter, and I said, please talk to Scott. He's our representative, and I do not wish to step on anybody's feet. But if you want to call and talk to me, I'll give you my personal opinion, and he didn't, so I assumed you'd gotten so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some of it, you got into, if we somehow paid for the, addition of solar and swamp coolers that, you would not, sell your house under a certain number of years. And, if you did sell it with, inside of the 5 or 7 year mark, I believe, I don't have it paper in front of me, so I'm just going off recollection here. But if you sold your house at, inside of the 5 or 7 year mark, then there'd be fees and, that cost would have to be. So it just sounded like that got into real estate and a person's rights or, individualness of selling. So I think there's good points in the article, and I was glad to see it, but that's my take on it. And then that's definitely coming from my own personal perspective, not the GA or the council. So that's all.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Any other discussion from the public? Okay, I would like to go back to one thing I forgot to do on the committee reports, Quad State. I am the representative on a Quad State meeting. There's going to be a meeting at 9 o'clock. It's a phone-in meeting, 9 o'clock Monday. I just found out yesterday that I cannot be the meeting. Some takes several hours. And Steve Morgan served as our representative on Quad State for many, many years. And unless the council would like to participate in that, I'd like to ask your direction to ask Steve, and he has agreed, if you all can't, to attend on our behalf. Does anyone have any problem with that?
I gotta say, I don't know much about the Quad State meeting, so I can't provide a whole lot of input.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of knowledge about the Quad City, but I have heard Mr. Morgan talk pretty extensively of it, and so I know his knowledge is pretty broad. So I think it'd be a good opportunity for everybody.
Steve, thank you. We appreciate your volunteering. I know you have a broad background on it, and none of us have the longevity that you do, so thank you. And if you let us know, there's items, it didn't appear there was a lot of items that were necessarily local on the agenda. So, but some of them clearly are appropriate for some in the outlying areas and the Cuddyback and those areas. So, anyhow. Okay, so let me go back then. We are then at the authorization for the city manager, Ron Strand, to sign the notice of completion for the South Sunland Street CMAQ project, for the city clerk to file the notice of completion, and for city staff to release retention in the amount of $33,515.13 to the contractor Griffin Company within 30 days after recording of the notice of completion. Is there discussion here? Sir.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, this is just a procedural item. This will be short and sweet, just like we've done before in approving a notice of completion for the Sunland project. What we're asking is for you to authorize the city manager to sign a notice of completion. That will allow us to release the retention within 30 days. I might mention that we save you some money on this. We came in about 11% under budget. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
I've driven that street a couple times. I really like it. I wish it was done back when I lived up in that area.
Yeah, it's nice.
I like hearing that we came under budget.
I'm sorry?
I said I like hearing that we came under budget.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
We got her done and within the contract time, and we got it in under budget and saved about 11% on it.
That was amazing, the time, too.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Fantastic job.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else who would like to make any comments on council? Okay, public? All right, motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Please vote. 4 ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
Okay, the next item, execution agreement 1 to agreement 343-2018, project CD 17 14.1 phase 180A improvements to West Ridgecrest Boulevard and approval resolution. Sir.
Apologize for not being quite as quick as Lauren to get set up. Okay, so what this is that this is a CDBG grant. It's an agreement with the county because the county's in charge of administering the grant. It is, with the exception of attachment A, it's the same agreement that you signed a year and a half ago when we went out to bid on this the first time. So that was on June 5th that you guys approved the agreement the first time. On August 15th, we rejected all bids because they were too high with outside the funds. We've gone back and redone a new engineer's estimate, and it's come out at $568,333. This does include the alternate where they can cut the curbs as opposed to repouring the curbs. And acceptance of this will allow staff to probably get this out to bid and run it for construction yet this summer.
Is there any questions from council?
No.
Any questions from the public? Okay, motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Please vote. Four ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, request to move forward on the west side of Downs Whiting project using traffic impact fees and approval of resolution to do so. Mr. Lauer.
So, excuse me for being rude. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I didn't say that the first time, so good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, Barb.
So there's a presentation on this one, and it looks like the item is over here. Oh, click the clicker, he's saying. All right. There we go. So what we're basically doing is coming to council. The funding that we had on this, and it'll be explained in a minute, needs to be changed. So let's just go through the presentation, and then we'll talk about what we're requesting. So the Down Street project's been ongoing since the 90s, almost 30 years. The original project with funding was intended to be TAB. East and westbound were to be done at the same time. Southern California Edge poles had to be moved or undergrounded at the time. So the project was sidelined when $2 million in TAB funding was reassigned to other projects. So the previous public works director and others were scrambling for funding, and they came upon RSTP funding. So the east and west sides were done separately, since there's only about $700,000 or $800,000 available per year for every 2 years in that type of funding. So the east side project, I know we're talking about west, but the east side project was approved by council in December of 2018. Mostly the work was completed in the spring or summer of this last year. You can see from the pictures here, it's a nice job. It's the rubberized asphalt with the high tensile fibers, and not a single crack during the earthquake. So it turned out very nicely. So the west side project. Project approval went to the California Transportation Commission in May of 18. We received notice of project approval from Caltrans in September of 18. Work began on design environmental right-of-way in October of 18. FHW deadline is in August for request for authorization, so that would have been 2019. And we turned in our RFA, which is a request for authorization, on July 17th. all federal funds were exhausted before the federal deadline. In other words, they'd all been distributed. All federal funding was already distributed for this coming fiscal year, the 1920 year that we're in now. So staff spent September, October, and November working with Caltrans and KERCOG to find a way to fund this project. And there was no way to fund it using federal dollars. So this is the current condition of the west side of Downs. This is why I'm asking that we continue this project. It's in bad shape. We came in and did a desert mix on this road, I want to say in 18, and it's already to the point of where the road needs to be redone again. So the city needs to move forward and complete the Downs project. We can't leave a project out there that's half completed. It doesn't have the crosswalk for the children crossing from the low-income housing across the street to the charter school. It doesn't have a lot of the aspects of what we need to do. We need to make it 4-lane to remove the bottleneck. So the engineer's estimate on the base project's $1,660,000. The project is eligible to use traffic impact fees. Basically, it has to be an arterial, and it is. There's enough traffic impact fees to fund the base project at this point in time. So the west side of Downs project, the sidewalk and curb and gutter alternative. Now, I would say that the engineer's estimate is about $475,000. That's to do curb and gutter along the entire length. The council made an excellent choice last December when they decided to do the alternative for the curb and gutter on the sidewalk. It completes the roadway, it gives it a finished look. We don't have the compacted dirt and the rolled asphalt curb and gutter. So with this in mind, we're suggesting that you don't do an alternate bid this time. You just pick to do the curb and gutter tonight. And we'll put it out to bid that way with the project and not bid it as an alternate. There are not enough traffic impact fees to fund the addition of the sidewalk, curb and gutter. We'll use almost the entirety of the traffic impact fees to do the base project. There is enough Measure V funding left over from last year to do this part of the project. Now, one thing that I have forgotten to mention when I did the presentation is that we will need to do construction engineering, and that is not funded. It can't be funded through the traffic impact fees again because they're expended, so we'll need to use Measure V for that as well. At this point in time, I do not have even an estimate, because any estimate we would have had would have been based on doing it according to federal guidelines, and we no longer have to do this according to federal guidelines because we're not using federal money. So I will come back to of course, we will come back to council to ask for the approval of that, but I'm just telling you at this point in time, I don't have a good estimate on that. So there's a documented trend that shows that projects bid between November and March tend to come in at a lower cost, since contractors are making sure they have enough work for the coming construction season. There's an urgency to move forward as soon as possible on this project. All plans, environmental, right-of-way have been completed, and Public Works is ready to bid the project. So
Can we go back 1 minute?
Sure.
Go back to the one before that, the slide before that. When you talked about there isn't enough traffic impact fees to do all those, what is the problem if we don't do it? Are we being will the project be bid on what the concurrent costs of doing it is?
Of course not.
Okay, that's what I want, because I would think that would be changing, because if we don't have to do Fed standards, it is obviously lower to continue to do it.
Well, first of all, we could have done it either way, either within the Feds or without the Feds. Okay, we could what we do is compacted soil with a asphalt berm as the curb and gutter. When we do, so it'll come down. I can't remember the man's name, but the property on the south end, it'll come down till it meets the school. It'll meet the concrete curb and gutter there, and the concrete sidewalk, and then it'll move in front of the senior housing project and the park and the substation. It will have compacted soil with the asphalt again.
What I really was trying to see is that the cost is going to be lower if we don't have to meet Fed standards.
the cost for the construction
Yes.
engineering will certainly be lower.
Okay.
Because we don't have to keep all the records and stuff for 30 years that we have to keep when we do things through the federal government.
Okay.
I think we definitely want to do the curb gutter and sidewalk. We got children walking to
That's
school
right.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I misunderstood where you were going with the question. I
Yeah.
was just saying that either's a possibility, and like I said, staff suggests that we move forward with the concrete curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand that we were going to be saving money by doing it this way, even though the money is coming from different pockets.
The money will come out of all of City of Ridgecrest pockets this way.
Right,
Before
right.
it would have somewhat come out of the federal government's
Right.
pocket. Okay, was that? Yes.
Thank you.
And so on the engineer's estimate for the curb and gutter and sidewalks, the 475, is the funds going to cover part of that? Not Measure B, but do we have enough to cover some of that, or is that the amount that you're talking about coming out of Measure B?
There's a very small amount of traffic impact fees left, so I just put the whole thing into Measure V. We use all the traffic impact fees and then move on to Measure V.
I was just trying to get like a close estimate of how much do you think?
That's about
That's
it.
the number? Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Like I said, a very small amount left.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Barb, when you move to the SCE slide, can you cover the issue with the park and the fence?
Well, next slide.
Got it.
So, West Side of Downs project, Southern California, Edison. One of the major holdups on this project was acquiring all the easements required for Southern California Edison to reposition the poles before the construction work could begin. This work was completed in October of 2019. We achieved a major milestone on Monday when SCE started work to reposition the poles along the west side of Downs. Park poles and fence must be moved because of the 10-foot easement they have beyond our right-of-way. So that will be another additional cost to this project. But all work should be completed by the end of May so that we can start construction in early June when the temperatures get warm enough to use the rubberized asphalt again.
We're working with a local builder to move that fence. As you know, baseball's getting ready to start here in the next month. So there's an urgency to get that fence moved because it has to be out of SCE's easement. We were never notified that the fence needed to be moved. It wasn't until just recently, I think about a week and a half ago, when they went out, they noticed that the fence was within the easement. So we have to have that moved so the kids can play ball. So we're working on that.
Does it look like it's going to interfere with the season?
It should not. We have a local builder who's making it a priority to be able to get it done. They're going to build the new fence in front of the old fence and then tear out the old fence. So we're hoping not to interfere with baseball at all.
Yes. We had a long discussion with SCE last week because we didn't see a need to move the fence at all. We knew the poles, well, we'd have to move the one fence because the poles have to be moved. But in our opinion, the fence didn't need to be moved, especially the one further down. But we didn't win the argument, and we want the poles moved, so we got to move the fence.
Well, their fence is in their 10-foot easement.
Sorry?
They have the fence in their area right out there. And I guess they can leave their own fence there. We just have to move ours.
You know what? That may be another argument.
Yeah, they're worried a little bit about the fence with the netting because we had the netting that went up several feet.
The poles had to be moved because they were way too high and stuff. That one we understood, but the fence we didn't.
I knew about the poles. I didn't know about the fence.
We didn't either.
The one fence in front of the poles would have to be moved because you don't want the kids running into the poles. So, well, I'm sorry, but that's true. But the one on the other side we were arguing didn't need to be moved. So, all right. So the west side of Downs, staff request. We'd like you to approve traffic impact fee funding for the base project. We'd like you to approve Measure V funding for the curb and gutter and sidewalk. We're letting you know that we're going to have to come back for the construction engineering money so that we can have the job inspected like we did on the other side. And once sorties are approved, Public Works will move forward immediately with the bidding process. So if you have questions.
I'm so glad this project is finally getting there. I'd just like to make one correction on your original report. This is going on long before the 90s. It was back in the 80s also.
Okay. Lauren, you gave me the wrong date.
Mike's been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any council questions or comments? Public?
Stephen Morgan, 729 North Inyo. Also do not want to delay this at all, but the question that I have on the east side, both lanes of traffic were not completely redone. So now you're going to provide for the west side. Does that mean you're going to leave the middle looking like crud?
Of course not. This job includes
okay,
from the straight line that was created on the last project all the way to the curb and gutter on the other side.
Okay, so it
now
takes out all of the old pavement
right.
and leaves the new.
Now,
okay.
Another good question to ask, and I'll give you the question, okay, and then I'll answer it, would be, why in the world didn't you complete the whole other side? And the answer to that is we were working with a very constrained budget at the time. We used every penny we could get our hands on to complete what we did.
Okay.
So,
and can you just describe what Rule 20 money is being used and how it's being used? The undergrounding money?
We're not, because it's not being
We're not using it for that project?
Nope.
So we have that money still available for other undergrounding? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stan Rotora. I'm just curious, what is the use of Measure V funding for this going to do in terms of impacting the planned maintenance of the roads for next year and the upcoming season for the roads?
By using Measure V to complete this project, we won't have to, well, let me go back here for just a second. Can you imagine the amount of maintenance that's needed to keep this road up if we don't redo it? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to save the maintenance on this. We're going to revitalize the road, and we're going to do that.
Okay. Can you give me a feel for a comparison of the number of square feet or square yards of material that you laid down this season versus what you're planning on laying down next season in terms of road maintenance?
I'm not sure I understand.
He's talking about the slurry machine. Is this?
Yeah.
We're not doing the slurry machine. We're not using the slurry machine.
No.
I understand that, but we're using Measure V funds, which is how we pay for.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I got it now. We'll do at least as much as we did last year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hang on. Let me rephrase that, okay? We will spend the same amount of time doing the work out there, all right? Whether or not the work may be more difficult. We've got a couple of cul-de-sacs and stuff like that. We may not get, you know what I'm trying to say? We will be out there for the same amount of time. We should be spending the same amount of money or more.
I think what Stan wanted to hear is this project is not going to impact our slurry projects. Isn't that right, Stan?
It is not going to impact what we can do with the slurry program.
Right.
Okay.
That was his concern.
Right.
Okay, any other comments from council? Questions from the public? Okay.
I make approval. I move approval.
Second. Second.
Please vote.
Can Mike vote twice? After all these years
How
you've
about
been
3
waiting
times?
for this?
I think 3 times.
4 ayes, 1 absent with Ms. Stevens. Motion carries.
Okay. All right, the next item. The Mojave View Housing Project Joint Grant Application and offer by Pacific West Communities Incorporated to acquire city-owned land, approximately 4.56 acres. I'm not going to read the APN number, and approval of corresponding resolutions. And Heather, you have this.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council.
So I'm here tonight to present to you the Mojave View Housing Development. This is for consideration of a joint grant application with Pacific West Communities and an intent to sell city-owned land for the housing development. These are some renderings of the Mojave View family housing. So Ridgecrest Affordable Housing needs over 1,500 Ridgecrest households receive Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits. Over 1,600 Ridgecrest families have an annual income under $35,000, and 40% of Ridgecrest female head of households have incomes below the poverty level. The developer was asked to conduct a market study to determine if a need existed in our community for affordable housing. Their study included the Ridgecrest and Trona area. The developer's market study found the total renter market to be 2,857. Of those, 750 households would be eligible for an affordable housing. And they determined that an additional 231 affordable housing units were needed. The qualifying income level for affordable housing are based on Kern County median income. Rents are based on income and household sizes. Rents for two-bedroom units range from an annual income just over $13,000 up to $35,000. Three-bedroom units range from incomes of $15,000 to $42,000, and four-bedroom units income ranges from $16,000 to $48,000. Some of the typical workers that might have qualifying incomes within Ridgecrest are clerks, waitresses, receptionists, and other service industries. The California Department of Housing and Community Development requires that local government meet housing needs for everyone in the community. The housing element, which is part of our general plan, identifies housing needs within the city. Our regional housing needs allocation identifies an unaccommodated 321 units of affordable housing are needed by the year 2023. The developer for this proposed project is Pacific West Communities. They have developed over 3,600 family and senior housing units in California already. Locally, they have developed the Larkspur apartments and the senior apartments that you see pictured. This proposed development is located on 4.56 acre portion of a city-owned 31.79 acre parcel. The vacant land is within proximity to other multifamily housing developments, and the development site is infill, making use of vacant land. The proposed public improvements will provide a link between housing, services, and jobs through accessibility to transit, walking, and biking. The existing zoning is R2 with a general plan designation of residential medium. The Affordable Housing Sustainability Community Grant. This grant has two parts. The city would be a co-applicant with Pacific West Communities, Inc. The developer will be applying for grant funds for a loan to build the affordable housing development. The city will not be liable for the developer housing loan. The affordable housing is a 76-unit new multifamily construction consisting of 32 two-bedroom units, 36 three-bedroom, and 8 four-bedroom units that will target families earning up to 60% of the median income for Kern County. Tenants will have access to a pool, playground, community center, and a half basketball court. Additional amenities include picnic area and barbecues. The community building includes office space, computer room, laundry facilities, and an exercise room. In addition, the city would be applying for a grant for funds for public improvements. This shows the area of the proposed public improvements in relation to the site. The grant funds for the public improvements are staff-identified projects. The grant application includes up to $6 million in sustainable transportation infrastructure and up to $1.2 million for transit-related amenities. The identified bikeways are West Felspar Avenue from North Downs to North China Lake Boulevard, Drummond Avenue east of North China Lake Boulevard to Burroughs High School and Murray Middle School, multi-use bikeway between Norma Street and North Sanders Street, bike crossing at Felspar Avenue and Norma and West Drummond Avenue and Las Flores Avenue. This shows the proposed bikeways and pedestrian ways in the orange. These bikeways and pedestrian paths would link services in the community between housing, shopping, churches, and schools. These are the proposed pedestrian and landscaping projects. There would be ADA sidewalk improvements on North Norma, Drummond, and West Las Flores. Those ADA improvements would include ramps, truncated domes, driveways, and any of the missing sidewalk segments. The landscaping would include North Norma Street drainage sump improvements. That would include the concreting of the drainage ditch and increased in the retention pond. There would also be a replacement of grass landscaping at the transit transfer point in front of City Hall with water-efficient landscaping materials. This shows the pedestrian way improvements. As I mentioned, there would be ADA improvements along all of these corridors here. So you have Las Flores, Norma, and Drummond. So all the driveways and all those sidewalks would be improved for ADA compliance. This shows a full scope of the proposed public improvements, including the addition of the transit stop and the improvements to that drainage channel that would increase the sump. There's also transit-related amenities. That would include the addition of 2 electric transit vans, a bus shelter and the new stop at Felspar Avenue and North Norma, and new bus shelters at City Hall. And there's also additional services that would be linking from the Kern County Transit from Bakersfield to Ridgecrest. So the land sale portion is for the 4.56 acre portion of the vacant land. Government Code 54220 states that affordable housing developments have priority in consideration of public land surplus sales. Staff has identified the property as surplus to the needs of the city. Pacific West Communities has offered $160,000 for the purchase of the 4.5 acres to build the 76-unit multifamily affordable housing project. All units, except for the manager's unit, would be for low-income families. City Council has heard the initial prospect of this land sale in closed session. An appraisal was conducted and found the appraised value to be $160,000. And the offered price is consistent with market value. The land sale process requires 2 meetings. Tonight's meeting is an introduction, and if approved, a second meeting where council will hear any protests and conclude with a final action. The housing project received site plan and density bonus approval from the Planning Commission on January 8th. This is the associated site plan that they approved. The development and the land sale are all contingent upon an award for the AHSC grant funds. Staff would request that council adopt 2 resolutions. The first resolution would authorize the co-application for the Affordable Housing and Sustainabilities Program grant, and the second resolution would adopt for an intent to sell the approximate 4.56 acre portion. That's it.
Heather, can you answer a couple of questions that were brought up at the Planning Commission? And it was regarding whether this was in an earthquake zone and a flood issue. Could you address the results of what was stated at the Planning Commission and also what was since been found out too? Anything additional?
As far as the earthquake zone, the project, the way the earthquake map works is it shows you where the fault line is, and then there's the delineation zone. The fault line is, I don't have it on me, so I can't really, but I can describe it.
Yeah, it was
so
like
the entire parcel is marked yellow because it's affected. Now, if this was already parceled off, which it will have to be once the land is sold, then it wouldn't be yellow at all, but is not within the delineation zone. The delineation zone of the 31 point whatever acre parcel is in the top left-hand corner.
If we were going to talk about things that are close to faults in the city, I think we would have to sit down and say virtually all of us would not be where we are. But the fact is that we have restrictions, and we are compliant with all seismic restrictions, and shows what little damage we had in this city. I think is contingent on understanding that if we are going to say because your one was 1,100 feet from the earthquake zone, we wouldn't be building. And so, but because we do build to earthquake standards, we saw less damage than we could have seen elsewhere.
That's true.
And the sump, can you address the issue of how the sump is going to deal with potential flooding in the area?
I would actually prefer that Lauren answer that.
Okay. Because that was brought up at the Planning Commission, and I was concerned because Planning Commission, I don't think, they because it was an up or down vote, wanted to get those questions answered, so I'd like to have them addressed here. Thank you, Lauren.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, the sump will be expanded as a part of this project. The existing sump is going to be regraded, shaped, as well as additional volume will be added to accommodate the site. There is in the FEMA floodplain maps, there is a designation there that FEMA has for a base flood elevation. So the site needs dirt to elevate the site. We have the dirt. We need the dirt removed to create additional volume for the sump. So both the channel that leads to the sump as well as the sump itself will be improved, and additional capacity will be gained by this project.
Okay, thank you. That addresses those two concerns.
I will say towards the earthquake, I built a subdivision north of this and then east, and I had to do an earthquake study and had to actually dig a trench and have actually Pierre Saint-Amand wrote the report, and it was determined that the earthquake fault was far enough away from the housing that was not a problem.
So, Heather, could you go back one page on the, so my question is, if the builder doesn't get the grant, okay, never mind, it says it right there. Could you move the page just as I was reading that last sentence on canceling the land sale? I wanted to know if the bill avoided the land sale if they failed to get the grant.
I've got one question, though. Who's going to pay the cost of dividing the land?
The land will be divided during the deed process. So when the deed is recorded, it will break off that piece.
I understand that, but who's going to pay the cost of doing the survey and everything?
That might be part of our purchase and sale agreement.
I think we need to look into that.
Okay. Is there any other council comments for now? I'm going to open it up to the public.
Good evening, Jennifer Slayton, 522 PEG. I think I might be the closest house to this development, if not one of the closest on PEG, and I'm actually really excited about it. One of the things that I struggle with Ridgecrest is we kind of put all of our poor people in little sections, and I like that we're kind of putting them in a place, one, where it needs development. We have coyotes who are someday going to eat one of my chihuahuas who are always like going there. I have a stroller. I have a 10-month-old baby, and I tried to walk the other day to Stater Brothers, and getting a stroller over what's there is a nightmare, and I have a good stroller. So I think that's a really good spot, and this is very needed in our community. The one thing that I have a concern about, though, is really the kids who are going to be there. So I live on PEG, and PEG comes in and it curves around. And I think this is true on Sierra View as well, and I suspect also Felspar. People seem to think it's like a racetrack. Like they come through there super fast, to the point where we used to have our kids play outside like on their bikes, and we don't. They need to play in the back. My kid was in the driveway, and a car came up and realized the street curved, but wasn't paying attention, actually went up on the sidewalk. So my concern is you're adding 76 2, 3, 4 bedroom units. You're talking 100, 200, maybe even more kids who are going to be going to Las Flores, who are going to be going to Monroe, and all of the traffic movement that you've done is all moving like Murray and Central to town. So I just think it would be worthwhile to look at how you're going to get kids who are low-income kids, do tend to be walkers. I've worked in low-income communities for over 20 years, really good experiences, but the kids who tend to be walkers, how they're going to get to Las Flores safely, how they're going to get to Monroe. Personally, just having been there, I think it's going to need something like, it probably costs $70 million, but like traffic, bumps or flashing lights or something, but something that reminds people that a couple times a day there's going to be a lot of kids walking through there.
Do you have an answer that you would like to address that?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
If you look here on this map, there will be a crossing right here.
Right.
So
I assume from that, and what I would do if I had my kids there is I'd probably send them, I wouldn't want to send them on Norma, it's too busy. I'd probably send them Felspar and then down Peg or Sierra View.
Right. So this is Felspar right here?
Yeah. And then Peg is the first one that turns off, and Sierra View is somewhere.
Right here. So this is Las Flores School right here.
Right. And
so this is a bike path, and then that would include the shared for pedestrians.
So I just think you need to look a little bit better at Peg and Sierra View at how the traffic goes there. I don't know if it's like traffic study worthy or like a couple signs might fix it, but I just think those are the two where if a kid comes over Felspar and down Peg and then goes over, I think that's Marianne, to get to school, like that area along Peg could potentially be dangerous, particularly where it curves, which is where I live. Thanks.
I'd like to ask another question. I see that Warren Cox is here. And Warren, could you come up and share, because of the discussion that was on parking spaces?
I was going to address that.
Oh, all right. Then sorry, Mike. Then both of you. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, when Warren first came to me with this project, coming to the Planning Commission, I was concerned about two things, the overbuilding of the site and the cut down of the number of parking places. So we went around town and did a survey, and the same people that are building this built the one on Downs. Number one, I want to say it's very well maintained for low to moderate income housing. It's really in good shape for, I don't know, it's been around 5-6 years, something like that. And we actually interviewed the manager of that apartment complex. They only have 2 vacancies, and the parking was basically half empty. Now, we went there during the day. I'm sure some of the spaces got filled by people going to work. But they have not had any problem with the parking. Actually, this project is a couple units smaller and parking spaces bigger than that project. And that project has had no problem with parking. So it totally changed my mind on both those issues. That I don't think there will be any concern with anybody parking out in the desert, or we don't want them parking along Norma Street, obviously. But if you drive through that apartment complex on the east side of Down Street, they've got probably 30, 40 empty parking places there. So I was totally relieved of that because I was really concerned about the parking. And I was very impressed with the condition that the landlord is keeping those projects in. So I'm 100% behind this project now, where I was a little concerned before. And Warren and I did the research together. So if Warren, you want to add anything?
Well, the only thing that I'd add is that I went over 4 different times, because when Mike and I went, it was about 10 in the morning. Then I went at noon, 3, and at 6. And what I wanted to do is see what was happening after work, or generally after school, after work. And the available parking facilities were the same. The other thing for this young lady and for the council to consider is that without the history of the affordable housing that's on the east side of Downs, that has been there for probably, I'm guessing, 10 plus years, and they have 10 more units than this one has. And this new facility has more parking stalls than the existing one. So 10 fewer units and more parking stalls. But yet they have 30% that's open. Now, in addition to that, for this young lady, it's been there long enough. You've got the charter school that's sitting on a 4-lane artery, as is Norma. And it's the same facility, if you want to call it low income, I call it affordable housing, because they have to qualify it, the same number of children, so on and so forth. And you just don't see, and law enforcement might be able to lend a different insight in the fact that when they're getting ready for school, going to school, is there mayhem, on Downs? But at least when I've gone down there has not. And so the way it's been designed and the facility, and with the bike trails and of course the crosswalks there at Las Flores, going to Las Flores School, I see the kids because I live right there on Mary Ann. And so you turn around and you look at what's going on now. It seems orderly. We're not having accidents. We're not having cars hitting children. And yes, we add 79 units, but that one is the existing one is 89 units. And we don't see the problem there on Downs. And so I don't know that that's going to be an issue, at least what I've observed. And then, of course, the times for the parking. So I don't think parking is an issue either. Any other questions you might have for me?
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes, Mike.
Okay. No, that's fine. And I came up because I had gone 3 other times just to verify what we had found and what we had found from the property manager.
Council, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, can I speak for just a second, a little more information for the young
Sure.
lady that asked the question?
Yeah, do you want to come up? Sorry to ask you to do that. We got some public, so we'll get them in just 1 second, okay?
It's hard for me to talk into the mic and speak to you, so if you don't mind, I'll talk into the mic if that's all right. One of the things on this drawing that doesn't show is a lot of the detail. There's going to be an actual Hawk-style traffic control device for pedestrians and bikes at both the Norma intersection and the Downs intersection.
Can you explain what that is?
I'm sorry. I will.
Okay.
So here, thank you, Heather, and here. What that is it's basically a mast arm, like a traffic signal, except it's just for pedestrians and bicycles. So somebody will come up to the pole on the one side and they'll push the button and it'll be timed. It actually will turn the lights to yellow, and then the light will turn red, and traffic must stop when they're crossing at both those places. Mid-block intersections are never a good thing, in my opinion. But with these type of traffic control devices, they work quite well. Also, on the south side of Felspar, going this way, all the curb and gutter will be made handicap accessible at the crossings for at any streets that cross. So that'll make it easier for bicycles if they need to be on the sidewalk. I don't know, is that not against the law? Is it to ride a bike on the sidewalk? Okay, so if the bicycles need to ride on the sidewalk, they'll be able to. And that'll make it easier for that to happen. So I hope that addresses some of what you were asking.
I think my only concern is just...
Please come up, otherwise they can't hear when it's recorded. Thank you.
I've got a question in looking at the map, though. Feldspar does not go through to Norma.
I assume it's going to, isn't it?
Is it going to?
That's why I got excited.
Why doesn't what go through to Norma?
Feldspar comes to Florence, the cul-de-sac there, and stops.
Okay, I have part of the answer at least, okay? So the part of the answer is that we don't own the right-of-way, and we don't have a dedication to the right-of-way on the north side of where it would be if it went straight through. Now, what we are doing, and this helps you, helps as well, is we're creating a Class 1 bike path. Class 1 definition is separate and a minimum of 10 feet wide, most often 12, that goes, on
our portion.
From here to there. Okay, at that point, it is already constructed from Sanders over. So it'll go back to a Class 3 bike path, which means it's called a Sharrow, which means it's got the painted symbols and stuff that means you're supposed to share the road with the bicyclists. There will also be that all the way from this location to this location. Now, one more thing you brought up. Sorry, White, if you don't mind waiting just a second. You were talking about getting to the middle school. From this location right here, there's Class 2 bike paths right now all the way, but from this location right here all the way to approximately here, we're going to change it to a Class 4 bike path.
Those kids go to Monroe, not Murray.
I'm sorry?
I believe those kids go to Monroe, not Murray, unless the boundary is Norma, because I live right there and my kids are going to go to Monroe.
I thought you mentioned Murray Middle School, but
She mentioned Monroe.
Monroe's where they'll go.
She mentioned Monroe.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
But anyway, just for information, it's going to be a Class 4, which means it's protected from traffic. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. Now, what was your...
Just that. I mean, like Murray is great, Burroughs is great, but those kids should, and I haven't checked the zoning map, so I could be wrong, but on PEG, where I am, you go to Monroe, and so you basically have to head straight south down Norma there. So if it's possible to extend bike lanes down there, I don't know if it's cool to bike when you're a junior high, or maybe they walk, I don't know. But whatever they do, some way to get them there a little safer. And then I'm not sure, I haven't really paid a lot of attention. I kind of assumed if I were at the Larkspur, I just send my kid to, Realms across the street, which is why I'm assuming that most of the parents there would send their kids to Las Flores. So Feldspar I don't think is a danger, and I think if you're walking on Las Flores, it's a good sidewalk. It's that getting down from Feldspar. So, if you can either send them on the big, busy street, or you can send them down basically Peg or Sierra View. So I think those two. Sierra View did have a safe routes to school grant a while back, so they do have like a few of the sidewalk corners that have been done. So maybe like making that a little bit more of a main road, or maybe continuing a bike path down that way, so it kind of indicates this is the flow of traffic. But even with that, when you come on Sierra View, you come off Las Flores, there's a stop sign like right there at Kevin, and people still like zoom up to the stop sign. It's partially because it's a little bit wider, and then on Peg the same thing. That entrance into the development's a little bit wider. And I feel like it's just some signage or something. I'd love to see those like speed humps or something, but even just signs slowing people down a little bit. Like I said, it probably costs $70 million for the city to do that. I'll just go dig a pole in my yard and put it in. But something that maybe slows people down so kids are a little safer.
All the ones you mentioned, I'll take note of. The one thing we can't do is put the speed humps in.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that the fire and the police department, neither one, it slows down their response time.
Sure. But even like I don't know, and I don't know with like the flashing signs with those are like, again, probably billions of dollars, but something there would be helpful. Or even a traffic study to see if it's needed.
Thank you. Okay, no more council comment for a bit. Let's open it up to public, please. Sorry to make you wait.
Good evening, Council. Ron Merrill, 713 Mamie Street. I have a question about the bike path that runs from Sierra View down to Norma, the access path there. That street is very poorly graded, so when it rains, the gutters fill up and they don't drain well. And so on a wet day, it's entirely possible that someone riding their bike to school would be out in the street trying to avoid riding through an ocean of gutter, and it doesn't take much for the water to affect that area. There are parts of that street where it looks like it just kind of goes up and down. It doesn't really flow well. The area from Sierra View west to Downs is fine. There's plenty of fall there, but from Sierra View down to Norma, the fall is substandard. Just wanted to put that out as a consideration as we're looking at this project, something to think about.
Do you want to take my card and
Sure.
send me an email about specifics, and then I'll go take a look and then give you a call back?
Okay, thank you.
I think that's all I had to say.
All right, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, hi, Dave Matthews. I'm a little discombobulated here, I guess. Is this facility going to be an apartment-like complex, or is it going to be individual, single units?
Can you go back to the first picture?
This is a multi-family apartment complex.
Apartment complex, oh, okay. Well, I live right behind Lost Forest School, and I would tell you that I would prefer that I saw more kids going to school on their bicycles or walking, because the traffic during school take up and let out is horrendous over there on Sierra View and Kevin Court and the whole area. And I don't know if the school district needs to step up and provide more busing or what, but I avoid that area at certain times of the day, and so do a lot of other people, just because there's so much traffic on a narrow street that something has to be done, and I'm not sure whether it's the city or the planning commission or the school district. But I hope I can see more students riding their bikes or taking a bus. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Morgan, 729 North Indian Street. First of all, kudos to the planning commissioners. I watched the meeting on the television. You guys did an outstanding job. Top notch. Now, the question that I have is not directly related to this project, but the company. The company promised a second set of units for the senior housing that we have talked about here tonight. We have Larkspur and we have the senior housing. They promised phase 2. So they haven't fulfilled that promise. So I'm a little leery about accepting anything else from them until we find out why. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Cameron Johnson. I represent Pacific West Communities and AMG and Associates. To answer the gentleman's question, the Ridgecrest Senior Apartments, we've been looking to secure funding for that project for many years. I mean, we built that project, I think, maybe 7-8 years ago. It's extremely competitive out there for these types of subsidies. It's still in our plans to build that project. We're actively looking for subsidy, and as soon as it comes available, we do plan on moving forward with that second phase. So I just want you to be aware of that. To answer Councilmember Mauer's question regarding the cost of the survey, any parcel map subdivision costs will be borne by us as the buyer. So, we'll definitely cover that. I do just want to talk a little bit more about the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities program, because it's an incredible program. It's very new. It's only been around for a few years. So unlike traditional subsidy programs where we go out and seek subsidy just for the affordable housing development, in this scenario, we're actually required to secure grant funding on behalf of the city for public infrastructure improvements. So this development, we're going to be applying for, I think, roughly about $11 million in low interest loans for the housing development, and between $6 and $7 million of grant funding for this infrastructure improvements. And the whole goal of the program is to build high quality, affordable housing in infill locations while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so how we do that is, the goal is to promote alternative modes of transportation. They get away from single passenger vehicular use. So the fact that we have less parking than normal is actually done by design, because we don't want tenants to come in with 2 cars. We don't see that generally anyways. And as Councilman Mauer mentioned, if you go to our projects, you'll generally see they're overparked, because these are low income, moderate income residents. They really can't afford 2 vehicles in most scenarios. So it's our preference actually to do less parking and utilize that space for amenities, landscaping, open space, and things such as that. But we're extremely excited about this opportunity. We think this will be a great project for the city of Ridgecrest. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Council? No questions. Staff? Public?
I love the project, and I think it's going to be a real benefit to Ridgecrest. So.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, since there's no more questions, our action is to...
We need to do 2 separate motions, please, for each resolution.
I make a motion to approval of a resolution authorizing the city manager or his agent to sign the joint AHSC grant application.
Second.
Please vote. We have 4 ayes. Motion carries with 1 absent.
I move approval of a resolution authorizing the intent to sell.
Second.
And we're going to have to do a roll call vote on this one. I apologize. There's not 2 slides. Mayor Breeden?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Mauer?
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 absent with Ms. Stevens. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is committee reports. Scott, Finance?
We have not met.
We're going to meet this Thursday.
This coming Thursday, yep.
Right.
The meeting has been moved forward, so we might as well announce that. The meeting was moved forward to this Thursday, so that's when we'll meet.
Because of Martin Luther King Day, we wouldn't have been able to have met. Okay. Infrastructure.
We meet next week from tomorrow.
Economic Development, they did not meet, did they?
Sorry, no, we did not.
Okay. Parks, Rec, and Quality of Life?
Yes, so Quality of Life did meet. There was one chief issue. That was the Ridgecrest ordinance for having BMX bikes and scooters and the like in the park. So we've asked the staff to do some research, and we're going from there.
Youth Advisory Council, did they meet? Does anyone know? No?
I'm not sure. The chief's absent tonight.
Okay. Okay, RACBB, does anyone have anything? Oh, Melissa, I should have known. Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of council and the public, good evening. I'm here for the RACBB report. We met today, and we had to schedule a special meeting for next Wednesday, January 22nd at 9 a.m. for the budget that needs to be secured. And then we also had an update for the Welcome Center. Currently, they're in the final stages for securing a location. They're expected to have a grand opening July 1st. And this is significant because it's a great reminder that a year after the earthquakes, we're still building and flourishing as a community. And then in relation to that, the RACVB was also invited to visit California committee meetings, and this will be a great help for getting kind of tips and pointers as to how they can do openings and how to maintain the Welcome Center. The next item was the annual report for the council. It's expected to be given to council by February. Then we also had the visitor's guide. It was reported that it's very popular. It's being distributed mainly by hotels, and there has been lots of demands from tourists and international visitors. Other items that were brought up were the Toronto Pinnacles were actually featured in Location 2020, which is a publication that is shown to a lot of film crews and production companies in order to entice them to come to Ridgecrest to film. It's great exposure for the area. And then we also have they also have filmridgecrest.com, which is a new website. It also modernizes kind of the process of how film crews and production crews can submit permits and also get access to information as well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Okay, the next item is other committees, boards, or commissions. Melissa, do you want to stay so I can get you to do the East Kern EDC? Go ahead.
Actually, I've got East Kern air quality control tomorrow at 2, and then as soon as that's over, I head to Bakersfield for Kern Code.
Scott?
None.
You want to do East Kern EDC?
Just an update on...
Just an update of that we met and what you said and did.
Oh, yes. So we had a East Kern Alliance meeting that was held in Ridgecrest. We were the city that hosted this time around. I presented basically the direction that Ridgecrest is going. I emphasize a lot on Bucks & Co., which is the analytical tool that we're offering to the public and to businesses so that our economic development can improve. We can entice businesses with this information and really also help with small business retention and things like that. And so I spoke mostly upon that, and that was the focus. I believe it was a successful meeting and very productive to hear about a lot of East Kern.
It was so amazing to see how much we are coming together as East Kern, recognizing the considerations of the economic growth in this area and what happens. And I was amazed that I heard Tehachapi report all the things that are happening. All the cities reported, and it was pretty amazing. A good meeting, and Dave Janis gave a great report from China Lake Alliance, a very successful report, and we're very proud of the work that they and IWVEDC are doing together. So thank you both. Thank you. Okay. Did you have any meetings you needed to report on?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I want to say one thing. On the 29th, which is Monday, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are coming. I believe it's just Girl Scouts this time, coming to see what city government is about. And the last time we did this, I asked them to all assume positions of what we do up here, and I asked them to debate whether we should limit only selling soda at schools at lunchtime. And it was pretty interesting to listen to the kids, and we had a staff report, and they were pretty amazing. And if any of you would like to come and watch these kids figure out how to answer questions from a governmental point of view, it was good. And so that's going to be at 5:30, I think I said, didn't I? 5:30 on Monday. I asked Kyle to join me since we thought he could help get these kids all up, going, and we got new council members in 20 years or less. So anyhow, that's what I have. I have nothing else to report. City manager's report.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, future agenda items. Anybody? I would like us to look at, I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I saw a letter from the League of California Cities about how we're dealing with, I'm going to call them Airbnbs, because even though that is a business, there are entities that are renting their homes out, and how we deal with that and how we can see if there is issues and how to regulate that, because as more and more people are coming into town, we are going to see more of that taking TOT away from the hotels that may be full, so we wouldn't take any away. But are there regulations? And I've seen reports from the League of Cities as well as others saying that what happens when these homes rent out a big party home, and that's what happens, and how did the police deal with it and that kind of thing. And so I'd like to see that maybe, I don't know if org is the place for it to go or where, how we deal with it. I would like to see that.
Yeah, we can make that happen. We believe we're going to be having a city org meeting in February. We do have the issue of the update of the municipal code, so maybe we can include at that point in time for an introduction and discussion.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who would like to put anything on for future agenda items? Okay. Mayor and council comments, anyone? Okay, and then we're going to adjourn. Thank you all for coming.